What's up, guys? This is Tony. I'm going to show you real quick few steps on how I made my enclosed V-nose shelves up here in the front. Juice Box and a couple other guys asked me about them. So I'm going to show you the few steps on how I made them, and I'll show you also some winter stripes just for bonus towards the end of the video. So let's get started. Alright guys, step number one. Go ahead and see your studs are up there. Even if you can't see your studs up there, you'll see where the plywood, where they screwed to the walls. You know, you'll see where they done it. So go ahead and get something real straight. You know, I used a piece of that E-track, or you can put a temporary screw, one up at the top, one at the bottom, snap you a line, you know, chalk line, like used for building. And go ahead and snap your lines. Another thing, I took all this trim off first before I did the shelves, and then I just, you know, cut it and pieced it in and put it in later. So you may or may not have to do that. It just depends on if it's in the way or not, the trim, because I just want it to look as good as it could. So anyway, step number one, snap all your lines. Step number two, there you go, two-stroke. Gas, so I can try to keep separate. Anyway, second thing is get your tape measure out and figure out where do you want your shelves. You know, what height do you want? Do you want 2? Do you want 3? Do you just want 1? You know, it's up to you. That's the cool thing about wood. You can do anything you want. So figure out the heights that you want them, and remember that your shelf's going to be like that much above your 2x4 because that's where your deck is. So anyway, I just figured that out. Make sure your mowing pole underneath. Make sure you can fit a blower if you want to, or if you don't need to up here. So anyway, and then just make some measurements off the floor, you know, whatever inches you want them to put your 2x4s. That's step number 2. All right, step number 3. You can see how I did this. I just put 2x4s, and you have your lines snapped. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold it against the wall where you want it, and remember, you have your measurements already. Your measurements going this way, you already have those marked. So you hold the board where you want it and hold it with your hand, because remember, these aren't really big, so you can hold it by yourself, because this board, you know, it's only, what, maybe 4 feet or something. Hold it tight, then get out your drill temporary holes through the 2x4, and just let them hit the plywood. Okay, and do that on both sides, then take the board down. Now, where you measured, where you see your little spots where the drill bit ran through the stud, those, when your drill bit goes through, when your stud's gone, when you take your stud down, you'll see the little spots where your drill bit hit, and then you drill those little holes, drill those into the studs, and make it just a little bit smaller than the screws you're going to use. Then, so I guess it's 3 or whatever. Then you take your board. Oh, and another thing, I don't put the boards all the way touching. You probably could if you want in the front, but there's really no point. It just wouldn't, you know, because it's still pretty close enough for it to be strong. So, and then you just put your screws through there and just put them in the holes that you drilled into the studs, through the plywood into the studs. So put all your 2x4s, and then you put your 2x4 right here. So it'll just look like a triangle with just nothing in the top, okay? Then you get your plywood, okay? And so you have your depth here. Just measure from the edge of this up to the front of this, and then you measure how wide it's going to be. So okay, let's just say, for example, it's 5 inches up there, and then, you know, down here, you know, it's even wider than the piece of plywood if you're doing it this way. I would recommend putting the plywood this way. I'll explain in a minute. All right, so it's 5 inches up there, and just as wide as you can. Let me see. Yeah, so it's 5 inches up there. So you're gonna have to measure. So like when you cut your plywood off, let's just say whatever this depth is, you cut your plywood off, and then so it'll just be a square. It'll be a square that's as deep as that point, okay? Okay, and then so you got 5 inches up there, and then you got to measure where does your plywood in, and you figure out, okay, let's say that's 15 inches or whatever. So then you measure 15 inches up the edge of the plywood, make a mark. And do the same on the other side, 15 inches up, make a mark. And then you're gonna take your tape measure, measure all the way across, and break the math down so that you're putting so you make sure that of the 4 feet, you're right in the middle. And then you make a 5 inches mark here. And then you snap your line from there to your little edge here, okay? And then, so you just cut those off, okay? And then, since this is all a consistent angle, those little pieces that you cut off right here, you flip those over, and those will be the piece for right here. Those will be your edge pieces. When that you cut it off, your plywood that you cut off, you flip over, that'll be your edge piece right there. And so it makes it really easy. And that's pretty much it. You know, you do that on top and bottom, do the both. I hope I explained that good. I'm not sure if I did or if it makes sense, but I guess maybe watch it again a couple times if you need to. And then this is just plywood that I just screwed on, and I use this. This is just like little added supports. All right, guys. One thing I forgot to mention: this 2x4 right here, you just screw it to the edge of these, and it works great. And then, sorry if explaining the plywood. So one sheet should do both shelves easily, because you measure this depth and you just cut off the square. Of course, it won't fit up in there. You know, it'll be sticking out this far until you cut the angles off. Hope that helps you guys. You should need about, I don't know, probably 4, 5, 8-foot studs, one sheet of plywood, 3-inch screws at least, and then some shorter screws, put your decking down. So it's pretty cheap, maybe, I don't know, $50 or something. Maybe less, depending on what you have in stock. So anyways, stripes. Toro Turfmaster winter stripes.